Good evening, Eureka Whiskey Club members. Trevor here, coming to you live from my home bar, per usual. Everyone is very excited this month. We're starting off January 2026 with a bang with our Weller Full Proof Barrel Pick, and we are joined tonight by Gregg Triche, who is the Premium Experience Ambassador for Sazerac, and we'll get Gregg on the line here shortly. Just wanted to go over some housekeeping stuff per usual. We are excited this month to release this pick for the first of the year. I do want to just call out, if you are a member of our whiskey club in Nevada, we did have some technical issues with the barrel that was supposed to go to Nevada didn't arrive on time, and working with Sazerac on that. And everyone should have got a letter today kind of explaining that, with an official letter from Sazerac kind of explaining the situation. But you will get your whiskey this week in Nevada. That will be ready for pickup this Thursday. We'll be doing our Whiskey Club happy hour this Thursday for our Nevada members. But if you're from Nevada, you already have your bottle and you already got to experience Whiskey Club happy hours, hopefully. I do just want to highlight the Whiskey Club happy hours. If you haven't been to one, they're a great way to get to know other members in your area, in your restaurant, get to talk to whiskey lovers, and just overall get to mingle with some great people that love whiskey. We did release our Blanton single barrel pick this past month. So all the restaurants except Nevada should have gotten that. Nevada will be getting theirs hopefully by the end of this week, early next week at the latest. And we got a Blanton's Gold pick coming out soon as well. So some great additional bottles to add to your collection. If you weren't able to buy an extra Weller bottle, your location may still have extra Weller. You are able to still purchase those as long as you bundle it with a non-Weller bottle to qualify for the purchase. That being said, one last thing on Nevada, we won't be getting any extra bottles for sale in Nevada. Nevada has the most members of any of our restaurants. So I think I may be going in and out. Did everyone lose me? Did I freeze there for a second? Oh, no, you're good. Maybe it's just my background computer that's freaking out. That's a good sign. So again, unfortunately won't be receiving any extra bottles in Nevada, but our Nevada Whiskey Club members will be getting their bottles this week. So again, Thursday. So I'll stop rambling on about that. It's been a bit of a month in regards to that, but we're doing our due diligence to make sure all our members get their bottles. So prizes tonight, we'll be giving away two prizes tonight. One will be a Weller cocktail set, which includes a Weller branded jigger, strainer, cocktail shaker tins, a mixing glass, and a cocktail spoon, all things Weller, as well as a Weller barrel head wall mount. So we will give our first place winner the choice of which one they want, and then the second place winner will receive whatever the first place winner doesn't get. So as always, if you're joining us live from Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and put your questions in the comments, and we will dedicate the last 20 minutes or so to questions from the audience and choose some prize winners. But without further ado, I would love to introduce our guest. And Gregg, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name. I didn't confirm it, but Gregg Triche from the Sazerac House, who's the Premium Experience Ambassador for Sazerac. Welcome to the call, Gregg.
Thanks, Trevor. Thanks for having me. It's Trish, but close enough. I've been called worse.
I get called Tyler 100 times a day because it's my last name. But so not an excuse for I usually ask in our little 15-minute pre-interview, but I was running around per usual. So thank you for joining us. We're honored to have you. Can you take a minute just to tell us who you are and what you do at the Sazerac House and kind of your background?
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. Name is Gregg Triche. At Sazerac House, I am what's called a Premium Experience Ambassador. Super fancy name for tour guide. Also, I'm one of the educators. I teach we have several classes we teach during the day. One being the Sazerac cocktail class, all about the history of the Sazerac cocktail and the Sazerac coffee house, and all the history of Thomas Handy is all kind of wrapped up in that class. actually develop the content and teach the whiskey grid tasting we teach there every day as well. Kind of go through a flight. It's more about a whiskey experience than it is more of just a tasting. So I kind of really hit on, how to elevate your nosing experience and acclimating your palate and stuff like that. So it's not your typical just, 15, 20-minute tasting. It's really a lot of the history, a lot of the science behind what's going on. So we started doing that, I guess, about 2 years ago. I've been with Sazerac House now for it'll be 5 years in a couple of weeks, believe it or not. I'm a retired federal employee after almost 33 years of service. Had turned 56 and went to HR and asked about retiring. And they said, Greg, you're eligible now. I said, well, I will see you. And where do I sign? So I was done after that point. I was an information technology manager for 2 bureaus in Department of Interior that manage all offshore oil and gas nationwide. So I'd gone through Hurricane Katrina. I'd gone through the BP oil spill. I'd gone through COVID. And after that, I was pretty much done. So it's a good time for me to retire. I knew I wanted to work at Sazerac House. I'd heard it was back in 2017. I was at Buffalo Trace for a Friends of the Trace event. I'm one of the Friends of the Trace. And Mark Brown had announced the opening of this cocktail museum a couple of years later. And I told my wife, I said, when I retire, I'm working there. And here I am. I told him I'd work at least 3 years, and 5 years later, I'm still there. So I'm an executive bourbon steward. I am WSET Level 2 Spirit certified. I'm studying for my Whiskey Master certification now. So I'm one of those bourbon nerds, probably like most of you folks on the line with us tonight. So just love the stuff.
Well, again, we're honored to have you, and excited to hear your input and expertise on all things whiskey, and specifically Weller Full Proof tonight. I kind of wanted to, I have a couple more questions about just kind of your current role. Can you tell everyone what the Sazerac House is for those that maybe haven't been to New Orleans or aren't familiar with the Sazerac House, kind of some history behind it and, current day operations?
Oh, absolutely. So today's version of the Sazerac House is a cocktail museum. There's some debate, but a lot of people feel New Orleans is actually one of the places, the birthplace of the cocktail in the United States. It dates back to about 1850 when you first heard of Sazerac Coffee House. The Sazerac name comes from Sazerac cognac that was being imported to New Orleans during that time. It's from France, the Sazerac family. A gentleman by the name of Schiller was running this coffee house. Coffee houses were a concept that came from Europe when we had, New Orleans was mostly settled by French, and they brought that concept of a coffee house. Now over there, a coffee house was really coffee. You went there at lunchtime after work, make your business deals. So that concept made it to New Orleans, but about the only thing we love more than our coffee in New Orleans or our booze. So those coffee houses in New Orleans really became the bars of New Orleans. So again, that kind of dates back to about 1850. Thomas Handy, which I'm sure you guys all know about, he actually went to New Orleans as a young child, like 14 years old. His parents left him there at that young age. He started studying, ended up working at the Sazerac House for Schiller. And in about 1870, he left. He went fighting the Civil War, came back. He was injured, and he ends up buying the coffee house around 1870, 1871. Unfortunately, that was about the worst time to purchase it because at that time the phylloxera epidemic happened. Phylloxera is a tiny little aphid that eats the roots of grapevines. Okay. The United States and France were at the time trying to cultivate a grape variety that could be grown in the United States that would give the nice flavor of the French wines that our French folks were liking. Never happened. Some French scientists brought back to France with them some of these grapevines that were full of this little aphid. And it spread out throughout Europe from 1871 on. The only way to get rid of it, you have to burn all your vineyards, till your soil, and couldn't replant for a minimum of 5 years. So no grapes, no wine, no cognac. So Thomas Handy then is credited with transitioning the Sazerac cocktail from a cognac cocktail to a rye whiskey cocktail. and later on the little spritz of absinthe was added to the cocktail, which really what makes it different than an old fashioned, right? Is that serving glass, you just coat that glass. Well, we use herb saint, which is an anise liqueur or an absinthe type liqueur. We switched to that when absinthe was banned in the early 1900s. So herb saint doesn't use wormwood, it uses mugwort, which doesn't contain the thujone that was thought to make you go insane and hallucinate and do all of those things. So the Thomas Handy and Company transitions to the Sazerac Company. Sazerac Company is then purchased by the Goldring family in 1942, I believe it was. The Goldring family, it was really funny. They actually started out as bootleggers in Mississippi during Prohibition. They were bootlegging beer from Pensacola and Mississippi into New Orleans. After Prohibition ends, they go legal, create their start up a distribution company, Magnolia Distributors. They eventually become Republic Distributors, merge with National Distributors. RNDC is born. And then in 1992, the family purchases Ancient Age Distillery at George T. Stagg, which then becomes Buffalo Trace Distillery in 1998. So the Sazerac House, though, is really that cocktail museum. It's really all about the cocktails. It's a free tour. You walk in. All about the history of the Sazerac House is the third floor. Then of course we've got displays on rums. It's very interactive display. So really cool museum. And hopefully your guests, if you're ever in New Orleans, come check us out. And like I said, we teach that a tropical cocktail class, a Sazerac cocktail class, and my whiskey grid class every day. So it's pretty neat, pretty fun.
Yeah, so I mean, you're widely regarded as the bourbon expert at the Sazerac House. And did you develop this whiskey grid tasting experience? And can you explain kind of what the whiskey grid tasting experience is and why has it been so effective, do you feel, in educating guests that come in and have the Sazerac House experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the experience that we do now, I did develop that course. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. We taste the flight right now. We're doing Buffalo Trace, E.H. Taylor, and Eagle Rare. And then, of course, a little side of some White Dog on there. Yes, I developed it. It took me a couple years to get the management to let us teach whiskey because we're a cocktail museum, right? They were kind of pushing away. And it's like, I understand, but I think we might be surprised. So I bugged them enough a couple of years ago. They finally said, Greg, enough. If you go put something together, we'll look at it. I said, fine. I'll put this kind of class together, this experience, I call it, presented it to the managers, and they said, we like this, let's try. We started out originally doing it once a week, and then it was so popular, we're doing it 7 days a week now. And that's kind of led to little higher ended tastings during some special occasions like Father's Day. We get, they let me do a BTAC tasting sometimes. So we get to do some elevated tastings along the way. Next month, I'm getting to do some Weller tastings, which is basically the kind of the vertical of Wellers, and might even throw a little Weller Millennium in there. You never know.
Ooh.
So yeah, so I'm kind of looking forward to that one. I've been doing that for about a year. And then we opened up a tasting room in London, in the Covent Garden region of London. And they took my class and they kind of imported it to them. So they kind of used my experience there. They use it at Buffalo Trace now. They've even been working with a group in India at Al Paul John. There's a tasting room there in India. So now they're kind of using that experience there. And I just finished a road show in October. It's the first time ever Buffalo Trace went on the road. We visited 4 cities. We did St. Louis, Kansas City, Jacksonville, and Tampa, Florida. 4 days in each city, 4 tastings in each day. And each tasting was an hour and a half. It was basically my tasting. We just expanded it for that. So that was quite the month. And we're supposed to be going back on the road again this spring. So I think California is on that list at some point in time, I hope. But yeah, so just it's been a whirlwind. Just been absolutely a great experience. Again, Sazerac pays me to do this, talk about bourbon, drink bourbon, and as a retirement gig, I got it. I can't complain. I cannot complain. It's been great. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you led or you were part of the tasting at the Sazerac House when I was out there for Tales of the Cocktail, not last year, but the year before. There was a BTAC tasting at the Sazerac House on like the third floor. It was super fancy. And I'm not
Yep.
sure if you were there for that, but
That was me. Absolutely. Yep.
nice, nice. Well, I enjoyed that thoroughly. And that's before we've obviously met. So if you're in New Orleans, go to the Sazerac House and do one of the tastings. Sounds like a great time. So let's dive into. Go ahead.
If you want me, I'm there Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. So weekends,
nice. Sounds like a sweet retirement gig. I'm adding it to my. I'm going to take over for you when it comes my time. That's.
I'm not giving it up yet.
Nice. Well, I'm not retiring anytime soon. So yeah. So let's move into kind of talking about Weller and William LaRue Weller. Can you give us a little bit of background on the legacy of William LaRue Weller and kind of the development of the wheated bourbon style?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really funny is, so we all talk about William LaRue Weller, but his father's name was Daniel Weller. I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years ago we released a Daniel Weller, right? Well, that was William's father. And the family was actually originally from Missouri. And in Missouri, they started out as matchmakers, right? Not like the Tinder matchmakers, like making matches, like you strike the light of fire, those kind of matchmakers. They were actually making matches. They got interested in distilling, but rye whiskey was very expensive to import into Missouri, right? Because that was all from the Northeast. But they had all the wheat that they absolutely wanted. So they had decided to try to experiment with substituting that rye with wheat. Well, as we all know, it was a very successful experiment. So they became even more interested in distilling. Daniel's son, William, takes over, and they began making their recipe, perfecting their recipe for this wheated bourbon. Well, at some point in time, they said, you know what? Kentucky is the place to be. So they didn't have a big distillery or whatever, but they took their company, the William LaRue Weller Company, and moved to Kentucky. And they ended up meeting up with this gentleman by the name of Arthur Stitzel, who had a distillery. So they go together, they partnership and create the Stitzel Weller company. And Stitzel begins producing their Weller wheated whiskey for them. Okay. So that's all going great until about 1920. We all know what happens in 1920. Prohibition comes around, and all of a sudden you can't, except for the 6 distilleries that licenses, you can't produce, distribute, or sell alcohol during Prohibition. So they basically have to kind of shut down for a while. After Prohibition ends, well, right before Prohibition, things were great. Their brain was getting out. So much so they actually ended up having to hire some salespeople. And one of those salespeople was a gentleman by the name of Julian Van Winkle, Pappy. So Pappy Van Winkle actually started out as a salesperson for the William LaRue Weller and Sons Company. After Prohibition, the Wellers kind of, I don't want to say go away, but they kind of fall out of the business. And Pappy Van Winkle ends up building what is the Stitzel Weller Distillery about 1935, right after Prohibition. So the Van Winkle family really takes over that Weller bourbon and start producing it. We all know how that turned out, right? It's absolutely incredible juice. So they're doing great until I guess it was about 1980. And about 1980, the whiskey industry completely takes a nosedive. It's like overnight, people quit drinking whiskey, right? I don't know, you guys are pretty young, but people switched to malt liquors and Zimas and Bartles and James and all of these kind of different things. And the industry got so bad that the Van Winkle family, Julian, eventually had to sell the distillery, right? I was reading the book Pappy Land, and they were saying one of the most regretful thing that the family has ever done is had to sell that distillery. In fact, Julian III, who runs the company now with his son Preston, until recently never stepped foot back on that distillery. Not because he had hard feelings, just because it hurt him so much to have to know that they ended up having to sell it. So that's great. One thing during that sale, though, is any of the barrels of juice that they already put up, it was their property. They got to keep. All right. So during this time, the downturn and stuff, they have all of these aging barrels of wheated whiskey they couldn't do anything with. And at one point in time, they were actually considering dumping all of these barrels. Because at the time, no one ever thought anyone would drink an ultra aged or an extended aged bourbon or whiskey. 4 years was it. I mean, it was hard pressed to find a bourbon or a whiskey beyond that 4-year age statement. So they were actually getting ready to dump it. Now, I'm going to kind of tie it back with the family, because with the Goldring family, because in 1992, they end up purchasing the the Ancient Age Distillery at George T. Stagg. They begin rebranding it. 1998, they rename it to the Buffalo Trace Distillery and release the first release of Buffalo Trace bourbon. Everything's going great there. And in 2002, they make an agreement with the Van Winkles. They say, look, bring all of your barrels that you have here. We will either finish aging them for you, or we will, tank them for later release. So they finally make that agreement. 2002, they partnership, and Buffalo Trace starts making the Weller line and the Pappy Van Winkle with their recipe. And as they say, the rest is history. So yeah. And now Julian and Preston work very, very closely. They are solely the ones, I shouldn't say solely. They are the ones, they go around and pick their Van Winkle line, right? So that's theirs. And then of course, Buffalo
I'm
Trace.
sure Harlan has a say as well, right?
Yep. Yep. So, so that's
how old was the whiskey that was laid down in the 80s that had, and then when Buffalo Trace, so how old was that whiskey? It had to have been pretty old.
Well, so here's the deal. The last of the original Stitzel Weller juice, as I understand it, and this is kind of conjectures, I have no official release saying this is it. But a few years ago, we released the Old Rip Van Winkle 25.
Yep.
Right. So from what I understand, that may have been the last of the original Weller juice. But look, once you tank it, that's it. If it was aged 25 years and you tank it, it will always been aged 25 years. So no matter how long it was aging or whatever, once you tank it, that's where it stops your aging date, and that's what you sell it as your age statement.
And how long can it sit in a tank for?
Basically forever, until it evaporates off. I mean, it doesn't really ever go bad.
And is there any quality control associated with that when you're taking something that's been aged for so long and then putting it in a tank for an extended period of time? Like, does oxygen affect it? Are you creating an oxygen-free environment in that tank? What does that look like?
I don't know the specifics on the tanking process, but yeah, I mean, it will change. There will always be some oxidation, but you're talking about hundreds of gallons of tanks, so it's not like a bottle where a bunch of oxidation is going to change it rather quickly.
All that much, yeah, of course. Awesome, that's really interesting. I learned some new things there as well. So I want to talk specifically about the Full Proof. The Full Proof was launched in 2019, and can you talk to us about? I believe that the whiskey goes into the barrels at the same proof as it's bottled at. Is that correct?
For Full Proof, yes. So yes. In my class, I always talk about the difference between barrel proof and full proof.
Yeah, enlighten us, please.
Barrel proof is proof in which the barrel is dumped. Full proof is what we call the barrel entry proof, the entry proof of the barrel. So all of our Wellers, all of our wheated bourbons, including all the Pappies, go into the barrel at 114 proof. All of our mash bill 1 and 2 barrel entry proof is 125 proof, is your full proof, right?
So if it gains proof in the barrel, it enters at 114, and if it gains proof, then you guys are proofing it back down to 114, which was the entry proof.
Correct. Yep.
Is there any specific reason to do that versus release a true cask strength version?
Well, we do.
Other than maybe yield?
Well, there's a couple of differences with foolproof, which is why it's one of my favorites. One, it's the higher proof, and for me personally, my proof points that I prefer are around 105 to about 115. That's my preferred proof range. So it's right there, but it's also non-chill filtered, which is one of the few Buffalo Trace releases that are non-chill filtered. So the non-chill filtration leaves all those oils and fatty acids from those grains in it. Same as your William LaRue Weller, your Thomas Handy, your George T. Stagg, your Stagg, formerly known as Junior. Those and the foolproof are some of our non-chill filtered. So those oils. So when you're drinking a non-chill filter, it just leaves this really nice mouthfeel, just really buttery, silky smooth mouthfeel. And that's from all those oils and stuff that are in those grains that are left in some of those releases.
So I love that we talked about the relationship between Pappy and Weller. In modern day, what would you, obviously they share some DNA. What would you say are the key differences between Weller and Pappy in terms of like philosophy, audience, or just the juice itself?
The juice is basically the same. I mean, it all starts out the same, right? When we put up a barrel of Weller, it is stamped with W.L. Weller. It's not stamped with Special Reserve or 107 or Pappy or whatever, right? They all start out the same. They all start, same juice, same everything. This is here how it's really pretty funny. This is how it was explained to me. They start out like kids, right? You have two kids. They are born of the same mash bill, hopefully, right? Grown up in the same house, that's aged in that same household. But by the time they mature, they could take completely different paths, right? One could be a doctor, one could be an accountant, one could be a welder, whatever, right? So, but you have those same kind of variables, but then by the time they grow up, they become what they become. And that's where those differences are made, those flavor profiles. The Van Winkles get first crack. They go through and they go tasting and they say, yep, this is going to be a Pappy, and we'll mark that aside as a Pappy. Now, then it gets to, is it a 10, 12, 15, 20, 23? At that point, it's kind of, up. It's really up to them. And then the Weller line is really up to us. And we need to decide which of those profiles it becomes: Special Reserve, Antique 107, Weller 12, all of those different expressions. So that's kind of how that is, that relationship with the Van Winkles and Buffalo Trace. So,
well, if you guys ever need a guest taster for those decisions, I'm more than happy to volunteer. So
as soon as I get to do it, I'll let you know, Trevor. I keep waiting to get on that tasting team too. So
awesome.
And let me go back real quick because I didn't touch about how does that alcohol content increase through evaporation. Obviously, the angel share, right? But the science behind that is water molecules are smaller than alcohol molecules. So when that barrel has expanded, more water molecules are escaping that barrel than are the alcohol. Hence, your alcohol content increases, right? We lose 5 to 6% per year per barrel on average, angel share. And I always like to throw this out because this really brings it home. Pappy 23, obviously the most sought after bourbon in the world, right? 23 years in that barrel evaporating off. A lot of times those barrels we dump will be completely dry. A good average yield that we're happy to get on a dump of Pappy 23 is 5 to 6 gallons, starting out at 53 gallons. So we consider 5 to 6 gallons a good yield of Pappy 23. So it really just kind of brings that home. It's like, geez, starting out at 53 gallons.
Yeah, and the Kentucky climate has a lot to do with that, right? Hot days, cold nights, it going into the wood, then pushing it back out. So your yield is probably less than what it would be in other climates, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. But so at Buffalo Trace, we also do some things to kind of control what we can. All of our wheated bourbons, including the Pappies, all of our Wellers, anything wheated, first is aged a minimum of 7 years. And then most of those are aged in the warehouses on the bottom 3 rows, as close to the center of the warehouse as we can get them, because we're trying to minimize that, change in temperature, because we're trying to minimize that evaporation. But by doing that, you have to age it longer for it to give it time to pick up those flavors and color and stuff that we know we get from the barrel. So pros are, you got to age a little bit longer. So, but yeah.
Awesome. We're going to dive into our tasting portion now. We got a lot of questions. Obviously, the Weller feature always brings out a lot of members to these calls, and I'm sure we have a lot of new members joining us tonight as well. So we have a lot of questions, and I want to be able to get to as many as possible. So, Greg, I know you don't have the specific bottle that we're tasting, but I believe you do have a bottle of Weller Full Proof. So I'm going to kind of let you talk about the general. You have a barrel pick, right? Is that a barrel pick? I saw a sticker.
One of our friends of the Triche picks that we got to do. This is from 2019.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So do you want to just tell us maybe a little bit about the general flavor profile of Weller Full Proof, and then I can go into our barrel. As always, we love to hear from our members in the audience. If you have tasting notes that you want to share, please put them in there. I always say that you may be tasting something that someone else doesn't taste, and the moment you say it, that other person says, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was tasting. So I'm going to share what barrel I'm tasting, but Greg, if you can just share with us kind of some general flavor profiles, tasting notes from regular Weller Full Proof, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the deal. So your Wellers and Pappies are wheated bourbons, right? Wheat is your secondary grain. So is corn. We use a red winter wheat and a little bit barley. So you take that rye out. So you're kind of taking that spicy component out. Those cinnamon notes, those pepper notes, those baking spice notes. Those all typically come from that rye. So you're taking that out and you're adding another sweet. You got sweet corn, sweet wheat, and a little bit rye. So obviously, your bourbons will typically tend to be a little bit sweeter. And for me, that kind of translates to a little bit smoother because you're not getting hit with all of those spicy notes. So more of the caramel, vanilla notes for me. Instead of like the brown sugar, I get like a little brulee sugar, like just a little, that crust on the top of a creme brulee, just something a little darker than your regular bourbons. Of course, your vanilla notes, your caramel, your toffee notes, and on the nose and on the palate, get a little bit cherry, like those dark Luxardo cherries. Maybe not as sweet, but just those.
Did you see my tasting notes? Because you're, yeah.
Oh, sorry. But I just telling you what I get out of it, right? So yeah. And for me, the big thing is the finish. It's that non-chill filtration, because you're drinking it and it just coats your mouth so wonderfully and leaves that just buttery, silky, smooth finish on your palate, which is why I just absolutely love non-chill filtered bourbons when I can get them.
Love it. Yeah, a lot of similarities into what I have on everyone should have their cards that give you my tasting notes. My tasting notes were based off of the barrel I got. I'm tasting barrel 181. So please throw in the comment section.
Uh-oh, we lost you.
Can you see me now? Am I
we
back?
Got you back.
Okay. The struggles of doing these calls while my 5-year-old streams YouTube in the other room. So much internet bandwidth to deal with. I was going to say, as always, we encourage. I don't know when I cut out, but I'm tasting barrel 181. So make sure you throw the barrel number in the comment section. Share your tasting notes on what you have. I get a lot of dusty oak on the nose here, almost like I'm walking into the rick house. If you've never experienced a rick house experience, just imagine what dusty oak would smell like. I get a little bit of that sawdust, which is kind of the same aroma. I know the rye spice does typically add some more baking spices. I do get some like Ceylon cinnamon here on the nose and vanilla bean. On the palate, cinnamon rolls, that toasted oak comes through mid-palate for me. I do get that creme brulee, that burnt sugar, brown sugar mid-palate as well. And then for me on the tail end, I'm getting a lot of those dark cherries and the lingering oak, and some like bitter dark chocolate. So I really loved this pick. I love all the picks that we do from Weller, obviously, but this is one of my favorites in a while. I don't have a side by side of the last pick because I drank it all, but maybe someone does. They have a side by side from the last Weller foolproof pick we did. But let me look at the comment section. We got Mark Horowitz says he's tasting barrel 249. Sarah Steepleton says she's drinking barrel 221. Trying to see if there's any other tasting notes here. I don't see any, but feel free to throw your tasting notes in the comment section and feed off of each other and see what we get. I have a couple more. We're going to dive into Q&A from the audience here in about the next few minutes. I do have one just general question about the current state of the whiskey industry and kind of your thoughts on it. We all, or I believe most of us, know that Jim Beam recently shut down a facility in Kentucky. What direct or indirect impact does that have on Buffalo Trace? And are you guys seeing any of the same downturn in whiskey consumption in the US? I mean, we talked about in the 1980s, the demand going down. And are we fearful of anything to that, extent, or how is this affecting Buffalo Trace currently, or is it at all?
So I look, anytime the bourbon industry is affected, it's going to affect Buffalo Trace. We're not immune from any of that. However, I think our leadership has really positioned Buffalo Trace and Sazerac Company in a position where we're absolutely ready for this. Look, I mean, I'm not unhappy that the secondary market is crashing at all. I hate the secondary market. I have never dealt the secondary market. To me, if you buy a bottle of bourbon, you better be drinking it or sharing it, not flipping it. Just me. I hope I don't offend anybody. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, preach.
Yeah. So, but to me, I'm okay with that because, you couldn't buy a bottle of Double Eagle Very Rare for less than $20,000 a few years ago. Now you can't give it away. People are trying to get rid of it for $5,000, and that's a good thing for me. It's like you shouldn't have bought it in the first place. It's anyway. So I think those Sazerac Company and Buffalo Trace have really positioned well with the expansion that we're doing, looking into different markets. I mean, look, the country, the largest consumer of whiskey in the world, the country that consumes the most whiskey is actually India. All right.
Wow.
Yes. One, because they love the stuff, and two, because they're so populous, right? That's why Sazerac Company purchased the Paul John Distillery, the largest distillery in India. So they're doing things to continue, even though it might be slowing down here in the United States. Japan is going wild right now. India is going crazy. We just opened up a tasting room in London, in the Covent Gardens of London. In fact, I used my tasting experience, I said earlier, there. We just did a road show. I mean, whoever would have thought that Buffalo Trace would be going on the road for a month doing these tasting experiences and getting the word out there. So they realize, and from what I understand, and please, my goodness, don't quote me, I think Buffalo Trace might be the only distillery that's making positive cash flow right now out of all the other ones. So we are very well placed. And all we keep being told that we are allowed to say for Buffalo Trace is that 2026 should be a very, very good year for Buffalo Trace products. And you're already starting to see that. You got to realize 10 years ago, when all of this boom really started, we got caught with our pants down, right? For a 10-year-old Eagle Rare, let's say 10 years ago, that would have had to actually been in the barrel 20 years ago from today, right? We just had no idea. Now we've caught up, or we're catching up with the production that we've increased and the aging, and really realizing where we are. So, I mean, look, you're starting to see it more you see more Eagle Rare on the shelf, more E.H. Taylor on the shelf. You're starting to see new releases, the new Sazerac Rye 100 proof, the recently released Sazerac Rye Full Proof, which is 125 proof, which is also non-chill filtered, which is also the same juice as Thomas Handy. for $40 instead of the Thomas Handy price. So just throwing that out there for you guys. Non-chill filtered. In fact, last year's Handy release was 124.9 proof. Our full proof is 125 proof. Go figure.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to try the foolproof yet. I'm trying to get a bottle of it from our awesome rep, but I do have the 100 proof here that I tried recently. That's really good. So yeah, that's good to hear.
Better, yeah. So I'm
And
sorry.
I agree with your sentiment on the secondary market.
Yeah.
Let's get really. We have a lot of questions. Really quick, as always. We asked you to choose a couple songs that you felt represent good drinking songs for whiskey or Weller Full Proof particular. You chose, and I had to look up the artists. I hope I got the artist right. You chose Nathan Kohlberg, Bourbon Melody. Is that the correct artist? And then Morgan Wallen, Whiskey Glasses. I think the Whiskey Glasses, I think the titles are self-explanatory. Can you just very quickly tell us about why you chose those songs?
So actually, they're some of my wife and I's favorites. So we have a playlist when we go to Nashville. Nashville is one of our favorite places to go. We have some friends in Ohio that we travel with, and it's like, all right, folks, we need a weekend, and Nashville is about halfway for us and them. So Nashville. We just like the songs. We like the whiskey bourbon songs. It's my wife and I. I mean, it's our passion. It's just something we started when we first met and started dating about 17 years ago. It was at the Bourbon House in New Orleans, and it's the first time we tried Blanton's when it was just released back in the United States. And so we kind of started our bourbon life journey together. We actually got married at the Bourbon House. There's an event space right above the bar.
Congrats, go back. That's awesome.
And it's a special place for us. With just bourbon in general has been a big part of our life. Then we met Freddie Johnson, and I'm very close friends with Freddie for many years now. He comes to New Orleans. He stays at the house. We go fish. I take him fishing. I mean, we're just like super close. And he took me from being just a bourbon nerd hunter to understanding what bourbon really is. And I owe him. I mean, he has been my mentor and almost a father to me. And it's just become such a big part of us. And those songs just kind of reflect, good whiskey, good women, good times, or just kind of puts me there, puts me in the mood. So
that's great. Well, you can't say Freddie's name without putting a smile on my face.
Oh man.
One of my most cherished memories in the whiskey industry and this job that I have that I'm blessed to have is one year we did one of these calls and Freddie was our guest, and it happened to be my birthday on that call, and Freddie sang me happy birthday, and I'll never forget that. And I've had the pleasure of going on a couple of his tours and meeting him in person, and he's a great guy. So anytime I hear his name, I have to smile. He's an amazing person.
2 years ago, February 7th is his birthday. He'll be 81 years old, February 7th. 2 years ago, my wife and I were actually supposed to go to Kentucky and spend some time with him. And he called a few days before. He says, Greg, he says, they got me doing so much, man. He says, I don't know how much time I'm going to be able to give you guys. I said, well, Freddie, let's go ahead and cancel and we'll catch up another time. Well, comes to mind, February 7th, my second grandchild was due to be born. So I'm in the hospital on February 7th in the waiting room, having a pour on Zoom with Freddie for his birthday while my granddaughter's being born. So she's born on the same day as his birthday. So, I mean, my goodness, I couldn't ask for anything more. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right. Well, we're going to dive into questions from the audience tonight. So thank you, Greg, for leading us through that education and learning more about the Sazerac House and the tasting experience. That's really special. We appreciate it. So we're going to dive right in. These are the first times I'm looking at these questions. So give me a second here while I sort through the first few. Amy Lander asks, what is your favorite Sazerac bourbon that you have ever been able to taste?
Oh man, that is a great question.
Coming in hot.
Yeah, I would have to say at this point, that's a tough one. It's either between Double Eagle or the Millennium. I'm going to have to go with the Millennium just because I'm a weeder. that first release of the Millennium was absolutely freaking insanely good. I mean, it's just I don't know if I can say the word I want to say, but it provides a feeling in your mouth that
You can say whatever you want, Greg.
yes, orgasmic was what I was going to say. It is
Awesome.
absolutely incredible. Yeah. So that would have to, I would say, be the best. My second best is the Double Eagle, very rare. You know, that's my second. But my favorite, my when I have it, my favorite all the time is the LaRue. You know, so.
Well, if any of our members are ever passing through Bakersfield, I believe we have that first batch of Millennium there, and also Double Eagle, very rare.
Yeah.
So, all right. I have not tried either of them, but
Yeah.
I'm jealous. We have them. I just
One of the
haven't
perks of
had to. Yeah.
when you get to lead those tastings, you get to taste. Of course, you got to taste them, right?
Yeah, of course. You have to educate yourself.
Yeah. Actually got a chance to opportunity to try the the Taylor Distillers Council a while back. That was
Nice.
pretty incredible as well.
So Veronica Barajas asks, as a newbie to all things whiskey, what's the best food you would think to pair Weller Full Proof with?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say two things on the savory side. Man, a good ribeye, right? That kind of darky, that dark, a little bit oaky that you were talking about. That 114 proof. Man, with a good ribeye would be absolutely fantastic. On the sweet side, man, a good dark chocolate. You could just take that with maybe a 70-80% dark chocolate. Absolutely fantastic. Because it just that mouthfeel from the chocolate on top of the mouthfeel from that non-chill filtered full proof is just it's wonderful. So both of those, dark chocolate or a good piece of ribeye for me. So,
Have you ever had a coffee crusted ribeye? Like with a
I
coffee rub?
have no, I don't think I have. No, it's
I
good.
prefer just the ribeye by itself, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking like with this whiskey, that may be kind of a good tie-in. Um, all right. Scott McLemore asks, if you could design a dream Weller, I guess kind of like CYPB, what would the proof age warehouse, and if you could finish it, what would you want to explore?
My goodness. So if I had the opportunity to do something, I would probably do what we just released, and that was the Weller 18. You guys aware of that? That it's a wheated whiskey. It's not a bourbon, but it's Weller 18. It's an 18-year-old wheated whiskey, so it's at least
That
it's
got
one.
released?
Yes, but it's only released internationally right now. I think you can find it in the Miami airport duty free and maybe the LAX duty free shop. I think I've heard rumors of people seeing it. I actually got to taste that back in August when we did the big release, media release at the Sazerac house for some of that stuff. So that for me is just absolutely incredible. So I would go with a wheated whiskey, actually. So yeah, so that the percentages, I don't know how to answer that because they don't tell us what they are, what kind of percentages of our grains. Buffalo Trace doesn't release that. They won't even tell us, and if we did tell us, we signed an NDA, so but I truly don't know. So I don't. So you kind of mentioned CYPB. I'm going to be honest with you guys because if nothing else, I'm going to be honest. It's not my favorite Weller. I know a lot of people absolutely love it, but it is truly not my favorite. In fact, if I had
I agree with you.
if I had an opportunity to buy any of the entire vertical, the only one I wouldn't buy before that is probably Weller Special Reserve. But any of the other Wellers, to me personally, outshine CYPB. And look, we're all different and stuff, and I don't begrudge anybody that absolutely loves CYPB, but it truly is not my favorite. So, I don't know. And as far as the warehouses,
Hey,
the
we
Weller,
appreciate your honesty, Greg.
Yeah, the warehouses are kind of scattered throughout, so it's kind of hard to really say. We know Taylors, all the Taylors go through warehouse C, all the Blantons go through warehouse H. There's really no set warehouse for the Wellers. Typically, it's wherever we have room on the bottom three floor or bottom three rows in the center of those warehouses where we're aging our wheated whiskeys. So.
All right, we got a few more questions here. Let's see here. Clay Cooper says, is there something about Weller barrels that consumers would be shocked to learn, but would actually help them appreciate the bottle more?
Oh my goodness. Repeat that. Let me think of that one. Repeat that again.
I mean, if the answer is no, the answer is no. He says, is there something about the Weller barrels that consumers would be shocked to learn, but would maybe actually help them appreciate the bottle more?
Now, the only thing I would say, the only thing about that is that they're all aged a minimum of 7 years. That wheat needs that long to mature, unlike the rye whiskeys and bourbons are aged on the outside walls towards the roof in the warehouses. They can handle those temperature changes a lot better. It'll get up to 130 degrees on the top of those warehouses. You don't want your wheated bourbons there. You want them protected as much as you can. So really it's the age. I think a lot of people don't realize that at a minimum they're aged 7 years.
Cool. Tyler, I mean, this is kind of along the same vein, but Tyler Tang asks, what is a little known fact about or story about Weller's history or its bourbon style that you find fascinating?
Well, I mean, honestly, going back to the history we went over, it's all pretty fascinating that to think that these folks that started out as matchmakers experimenting with wheat because they didn't want to pay to have rye imported, that ends up turning out to be this phenomenal bourbon that we're all enjoying. The entirety of the history is actually fascinating to me, which is, I guess, why I'm doing what I do and just absolutely love all getting into all of this history and figuring out all the tie-ins with everything. So yeah, just really the entire story for me is absolutely amazing.
Love it. Sarah Steepleton says, do you have any fun or unusual techniques for smelling and tasting bourbon or whiskey in general, I guess?
So yeah, in my classes, I spent a good bit of time on nosing because to me, nosing is where you really get to know that bourbon, where you get to learn what it's really about. And I talk a little bit about the science. Look, we got 10,000 taste buds in our mouth, of which we taste 4 things and 4 things only: sweet, sour, bitter, salt. 90% of what we taste actually comes from our sense of smell and our 2 bundles of nerves called the olfactory tract. Each one of the bundles has about 100,000 nerve endings each. So I'm an IT guy. I talk data. So which one gives you more data, that sense of smell or that taste, right? It's that sense of smell. So I spend a good bit of time on that. And then I talk about ways to enhance the experience of nosing. And one is what you don't do, and that's what we call the ramrod technique, right? That's when you ram your nose as far down that glass as you can and take a big old whiff. This isn't a beautiful glass of California Cabernet at 12%. This is, 90 proof at least. So we start just by, starting about chin high, raising the glass while you're inhaling. Start picking up the aromas. When it gets closer, where you get more of the alcohol, stop, go down. That's your sweet spot. Go over looking for your primary nostril. Move that glass side to side, which is your primary nostril. Every 2 to 4 hours, one of your sinuses partially shuts down to give it time to remoisturize. So you want to find that primary nostril. Now, here's the biggie, which I just kind of learned from the guy that Glencairn rep. He was in the New Orleans Bourbon Festival doing a seminar, and I'm involved in that. And he says, with a Glencairn glass, when you're nosing it, you got to remember alcohol molecules are heavier than air. So when you're nosing, if you're nosing towards the bottom of the rim, you're going to get a bit more of the alcohol. If you drop the glass down a bit and nose towards the top of the rim, you will probably notice you're going to get a little bit less of the alcohol and a little bit more of the aroma. So try those, side to side, but up and down too. So don't forget about that up and down. So it's all about enhancing that experience.
One of my favorite kind of tidbits, which I mentioned on this call before, is that your olfactory bulb in your brain, which is responsible for smell, is located very close to your hippocampus, which is where memories are stored. So oftentimes smells are associated with memories, which for me is definitely true. You'll see in a lot of my tasting notes, I'll have like grandma's snickerdoodle cookies,
Yeah.
like because it reminds me of my grandma's snickerdoodle cookies.
90% of what we taste and smell actually comes from a memory of something we've tasted and smelled before. That's why, again, we only
That's
taste.
why you get. That's why you get better. The more you taste, the better you get.
There you go. Absolutely.
All right, we got a ton of questions. I wish I could get to them all. I'm gonna try my best to get to as many as possible.
Yeah.
Let's see here. This is a good one. Jared Mackey asked, "What is the most unique tasting note to you that you find across Weller bourbons, and what would you consider your favorite tasting note of Weller bourbon or full proof, I guess specifically?"
Oh, well, for me, it's that brulee sugar. My favorite dessert's a creme brulee with that kind of crusty top, and that note for me is what always carries through on my Wellers, especially the higher proof ones, that Weller full proof. It just absolutely takes me to a restaurant enjoying a nice creme brulee. So that memory you were talking about, that's the memory, or that's what my brain is telling me I'm enjoying is the nice topping of a creme brulee. So that for me, that's the note I really look forward to in my Wellers.
Awesome. I think you answered this already, but Vincent Zuniga asks, "What out of all the Weller products you've been able to try, which is your favorite and why?"
Oh, my favorite's absolutely the William LaRue Weller that I can get, right? I mean, I don't have Millennium. I wish I did, but I don't. So of the ones I can get sometimes, my favorite is the William LaRue Weller, no doubt, which is basically Weller 12, uncut, unfiltered. Same juice. It's Weller 12 barrel dump, and we don't chill filter it and don't proof it down. That's what William LaRue Weller is, folks. So that's my favorite. My go-to kind of daily of the Wellers is Antique 107. Again, it's that proof point that's just right there for me. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, we're going to do one more question, then we will bid adieu. I'm sorry, I tried to get to as many questions as possible. Obviously, we have quite the large turnout whenever we talk all things Weller. So big thanks to all our Whiskey Club members for joining us live and submitting all your questions. I really appreciate you guys being here. It means a lot to me. I always love the engagement. So for the last question of the night, I'm going to give it to our regular attendee, Matthew Archer. He said, "If you could have a pour anywhere in the world, what are you drinking and where?"
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I will tell you, I think I've already had that pour. I'll tell you my favorite, my experience. A couple years ago, when Freddie was down here, we were at the camp fishing, and at night we were kind of watching TV, talking, and he kept talking about this guy Taylor this, Taylor that. And finally, I looked at him and said, "Freddie, who the hell is Taylor?" He says, "Oh, Greg, I'm so sorry. E.H. Taylor Hay." I said, "And who is this?" He says, "Great grandson of Colonel Taylor." I said, "He and I are friends." He says, "We will call him tomorrow on the way back home from the camp." So on the way back home, we call him, and we're talking to Taylor Hay, the great grandson of Colonel Taylor.
Your Freddie impression is pretty good, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt your story, but
that's okay. No problem. This was in July. In September, we went up to the Kentucky Bourbon Fest, and he says, "Greg, this is an address. Saturday afternoon, meet me here at 6:00." I said, "Okay." Didn't tell me why. So we show up, my wife and I pull up this big white house on a hill, and this gentleman walks out, skinny as my finger, long stringy hair with a bandana. I said, "Freaking Willie Nelson." I said, I didn't know who this was. So we sit. Then Freddie walks out and he waves us up. He says, "Greg, Taylor Hay." So I actually got to sit down, my wife and I, with Taylor and with Freddie over dinner, and I had the opportunity just to sit there and listen to those two, the stories they told. It still gives me goosebumps just thinking about those two icons of the world, right? And Freddie had brought with him a bottle of Old Taylor from 1976, and we opened it, and that's what we had a pour over. And until something along comes along better that I could even think of, right now I really can't think of another place or port to have with anybody that would supersede that at all. Just now, unfortunately, Taylor passed away about 6 months ago at the young age of 94. But just to get to meet him and stuff is just absolutely incredible. I got to see the bottle that Buffalo Trace used to model the E.H. Taylor line after they acquired the Taylor line. It was actually a bottle that Taylor owned. It was bottled in 1913, was still closed. They let Buffalo Trace use it. They let them draw with a syringe some of the juice out of it from 1913 now. And what they discovered, the yeast strain that was in that bottle is the very same yeast strain they're using today. And it was absolutely amazing that, and just the history. Oh my God, it was, yeah. I don't know of a pour anywhere that at this point that would outdo that at this point in time. So yeah, great question.
Sounds like a special moment.
It was incredible. Yep.
Well, Greg, I smiled a lot tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you here and to have you enlighten us on the rich history of everything Buffalo Trace, the Sazerac House, and obviously Weller. We're gonna go. I don't know if you want me to recap all the questions, or do you have two standouts that come to mind?
I mean, two of my favorites. I'm probably going to go with. I really like the question from the lady about pairing. I think enough ladies don't get involved in our industry, and I love when they are and want to do things to make it better. So the pairing, what would I pair with it? I think was great. And the question on nosing, I'm a little passionate about that. I think unfortunately people pass over nosing and don't spend enough time really nosing your whiskey and bourbons before they just go straight to your mouth with it, which is fine. I'm not criticizing, but I just like, I like the opportunity to tell people, hey, don't just skip over that nosing right away. It's just way too important for your full experience. So those are my two favorite questions.
Awesome. All right. I think the pairing question was Veronica Barajas said, as a newbie to whiskey, what's the best food to pair Weller Full Proof was? And I think Sarah Steepleton had the question of, do you have any fun, unusual techniques for smelling and tasting bourbon? Does that sound accurate to you?
Yep.
Awesome. Sounded like your favorite question was the nosing question, so I'm gonna go with that for the first place. I don't want to lead the witness, but it kind of sounded like that to me. So Sarah, we'll reach out to you if you want the Weller cocktail set or if you want the barrelhead, and then Veronica will reach out to you to see if you want. Well, you'll get whatever Sarah doesn't want. But two great prizes. Again, Greg, can't thank you enough for joining us. I want to genuinely thank. I just want to take a moment because I know this is one of our bigger turnouts of the year for these calls. If this is your first time as part of the Eureka Whiskey Club, if this is your first month, or if this is your first time joining one of these calls, we do these every month. We have great guests. We give away great prizes. We really love the community of the Eureka Whiskey Club. We hope that if you sign up for Weller Full Proof this month, you'll continue your membership. We have great whiskeys released throughout the year. You get a ton of great perks as being part of the club. You get 15% off your dining on food and drinks in the club. You get access to these virtual tastings, monthly happy hours where we raffle off bottles once a month. And I'm just super appreciative of this community that we've built over these past 6 years, and hope that if you are joining, this is your first month, we'd love for you to continue to be a member and continue on this journey with us. And with that, Gregg, thank you very much.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, man. Cheers to
We
everyone out
appreciate
there.
your time.
As Freddie would say, make memories, folks.
I love it. I'll come see you in New Orleans next time I'm there. I'll be there for Tails this summer.